What is going on, Metaverse? Have you ever arrived at a party and thought to yourself, we're too early, and wondered when the party was going to get started? That's true for Web3 gaming right now. However, as you also know, it's not when the party starts that determines when it was successful, but rather when it ends. I'm joined today by Kevin from the Arcade to Earn team, an infrastructure project that's making sure that Web3 gaming will still be here 50 years from now. Yes, that's right, 50 years from now. We'll talk about that in the interview today and why that long-term time horizon. In this discussion, we're going to talk about what are some main pain points that we as gamers, as guilds, and as investors see in the Web3 space today. How is Arcade trying to solve some of those? What are some of the upcoming projects that Kevin is interested in, and the general state of the Web3 gaming industry? Also, Kevin is going to share a little bit of alpha later on in the video, so stick around for that. You won't want to miss it. The links for all of the servers and the projects that we discussed today are in the description below, so make sure to check those out afterwards if you're interested. As usual, nothing that we say on this channel is financial advice, and you should always do your own research. So with no further ado, let's see what Annie and Kevin know about Web3 gaming that your grandkids will still be playing. So Kevin, glad to have you here with me. Why don't you share with our audience a little bit about your background and how you got into Web3 gaming?
Yeah, nice to be here, and thank you for putting this together. Always great to work with other great people in this space. Yeah, Kevin, Chief Business Development Officer with Arcade. Really got into Web3 gaming about the middle of last year. Me and the other founding team at Arcade. We originally set out to be a game guild. We wanted to kind of take some corporate business structure and apply it to the new AAA games and game guild opportunity that was coming out. And when we did so and started kind of like researching it all and figuring out who we could attract to our game guild and everything like that, we saw that there was a large group of people that might not be pro gamers but are really interested in the whole Web3 gaming opportunity. And so we saw the need to create this platform called Arcade. And that is really what drew me to the Web3 gaming, was that you get to combine the best things about video games, which everybody plays as a kid, and we now play as adults because it's just super fun. But that also there's like a business side to it where we can help people earn some money by playing games, and also have careers playing games. So yeah, just really drew me into Web3 gaming that can combine something that's really fun and turn it into a business as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think there's a lot of potential in the Web3 gaming space, as anyone on my channel knows. That said, you talked about a couple different points there about why you think gamers are interested, but what is it that you feel Web3 gaming specifically brings to the space that traditional or Web2 gaming doesn't?
Yeah, it's the ability to own and I don't want to necessarily say monetize. It's not really all about money, but it's a way to have something representative of the hours that you put into something and get value from it. I mean, I know sometimes like when I would play a game and go in a hole for a weekend and you play all weekend and you done and you beat what you want to do, you kind of look back on it and you're like, okay, what do I have from that? I spent my
Yeah.
whole weekend. I maybe have my achievements. I have, what I did with my friends. But with Web3, now you actually have something to show for it. It might be a special character that you achieved. It might be something that you earned by being a top player in a tournament. So I think it really just validates that, gaming is a skill, and it's it's a hobby, but it's also a skill and something that you can be good at. And it's nice to show something for that. If you race cars and you go, race, for a weekend, you get a trophy and you get, notoriety. And I think by having, blockchain involved in that, it's kind of locked in stone forever. People can go back and be like, okay, Kevin beat this level and did this tournament, and forever it's etched in stone that he did this, and then you usually have something to show for it. And so I think that's what's so cool about Web3, is that it's going to enable people to really feel good about the time that they spend in these games, have something to show for it, and then possibly make some money from it, so that can fund their other gaming opportunities, or
Yeah.
use it for other purposes in life.
Yeah, I think that concept of asset ownership is really critical here. And, I've got an economics background, and part of that, really has me focused on the value of property rights, and in this case, virtual property rights. And so, one of the big knocks on Web3 gaming right now, and I think it's a fair one, is too many people are focused on purely the earning aspect.
Hmm.
And I think there's an important potential earning aspect here. We'll dive into it some, but also there's just a pure ownership aspect that we want to make sure that as a gamer, if I spend hours or I pour hundreds or even thousands of dollars into a game, what do I get out of that afterwards? And in the virtual space, it's been very difficult for us to have true asset ownership that's able to be tracked and fully transparent. But with the blockchain now, we have that potential. So I think this is an amazing opportunity as well. So
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
so with all that said, why do you think a lot of gamers have not embraced Web3 gaming? In our view, at least, it seems to be clearly the case that it's going to be better for gamers to have ownership of their assets rather than not. So what do you think's holding them back?
I think a lot of it is that the industry in the space is focusing on the technology that makes Web3 gaming, and I think it's turning gamers off because they are being kind of convinced to come to Web3 gaming because of the technology behind it. The NFT, blockchain, play to earn, all those things are the technology or the structure, and that's not why people join things. Like when people switched from playing Nintendo 64 to PlayStation 5 or whatever the jump was, it's not because that the game maker sold it as like, oh, our new thing has the XYZ 47 chip and we use this layer 2 technology. That's not why people joined and played those next level of games or put more money into it. They did it because it was a fun game and they saw value in it. And so I think the narrative really needs to be changed, that it's not Web 2 versus Web 3 gaming. It's not NFT gaming, because that's just the technology behind it. What really is going to make the switch is just going to be, you're playing game A, come play game B. Here's the features of game B. They're not going to care about what technology drives it. They're just going to care about what value they get. And so if they're playing a Web 2 game and then they see a Web 3 game that looks, graphically cool, it hooks them, there's challenge to it. And then they also see like, oh, wait a second, like I created this account, this user account, or this wallet or whatever the technology the game uses. And, as I do these microtransactions and play in, but as I beat these levels, I get money back. And now I can like legally trade these things to other people. Whereas before it was like a black market to like sell accounts to other people and stuff. Like, I think that's really what's going to be the big change. So I think I don't even want to say it's education, because we don't need to convince them. We just need to show them good games. And then we'll have the Web3 companies will have the technology behind it. And they're not going to care if it's an NFT or if it's a token or whatever it is. They're just going to care like, oh, I came in, I signed up, I got this account, I played this game, and like now I have something to show for it. So I think the biggest turnoff is that there's just buzzwords that are being used, and those terms are really the technology behind the game. And so what's really promising is that a lot of the games coming out, I think, are starting to get that. And so, Web 2 gamers will look at these new games and just say like, oh yeah, this looks really cool. And I'm seeing it in GameStop is now doing Web 3 games and stuff. They're just going to see the game and they'll figure out how to do it. If they really like the game, they'll figure out how to go set up a wallet. They'll figure out how to, buy the entrance NFT or whatever. Just like if you like a, really cool car racing game and it says you need this, steering wheel pedal controller, you just go buy it. Like, people figure out a
Yeah.
way to do the technology that is with the game that they want to play. So, yeah, I think the biggest hurdle is just the terms being used and the fact that we're pushing the technology and not the experience.
Mm. You saying that reminded me, there's a pretty famous video. It's one of the most watched TED Talks of all time. And in it, Simon Sinek talks about why and the golden circle. So for any of our audience that haven't seen that, it's pretty cool, not gaming specific. But what he describes is when you're launching a new product or you have a vision for something, instead of focusing on the what, which in this case, like you said, is the back end technology and blockchain and what that actually means. And also, instead of focusing on the how, you need to focus on the why, which is really the
Hmm.
core. And I think this topic of asset ownership and of the ability to have more both responsibility but also freedom in terms of what you're doing with the gaming assets that you produce. I think that's a really important message, and that talks about the why. And as you said, we talk about the game itself, not the underlying technology. It has a potential to bring people in. One of the videos I had done also is on why gamers hate crypto and hate Web3. And, I talked about things like value and transparency of pricing. And the big one is quality. And I certainly think that, a lot of quality games haven't come out in the space yet. And I don't think that's arguable by anyone that's been around
Hmm.
for a while. Um, as we were talking beforehand, you mentioned that Field of Dreams is one of your favorite movies, and in that,
Hmm.
there's a really famous quote that says, "If you build it, they will come." So, do you think that if we build quality games, are we going to have gamers just come into the space?
Yeah, absolutely. So, either it being the immersive VR AAA quality, or even just the draw of a really good game loop. I mean, you look at some of the highest user base mobile games. They're not cinematic quality. They just have really good gameplay. You look at Clash of Clans. You look at Pokemon Go. You look at all different kind of games like that. Like, they're not AAA quality. They just have really fun aspects to them that make people want to play them. And then you also have the really high quality games that are on console and PC and stuff. And so, yeah, absolutely. If the industry makes these games that are fun to play, they have a really good community aspect to them, where you're playing against or with other people, and then you add an earnings component. I mean, think if you played Fortnite, and you spend all your V Bucks, and if you're the top five at the end of a tournament, or season schedule, something like that, you win $2,000. I mean, people are playing these games and spending $300-400 just because it's fun, and that's where they want to spend their disposable income. So why would they not do that if there was another game just as fun, but if you beat your friends, like, you got their money? Like,
Yeah.
I kind of take it like the friendly poker night. I mean, look at how many
Hmm.
poker nights there are, a bunch of people getting together, and everybody puts in $50. And it's like, well, they'll do that because, like, hey, if I beat all my friends, like, I go home with $350. And
Yeah.
so,
That's right.
I see this space as a lot of that, where, people won't mind, losing. People won't mind spending money and not earning it all back. And some people will earn a lot, and it's okay, because, yeah, the game will be fun, and it'll actually, I think, add a lot of, like, emotion and kind of drama to it. Because, I mean, if you, like, again, using the poker analogy, I was amazing at free to play poker. Like, I could beat anybody because there was no emotion involved. There was no,
Yeah.
like, money. As soon as I
Turns that
put
up a little bit.
as
Yeah.
soon as I put real money into an account, and even having the blind just be like 50 cents in a dollar, like, I started to be really bad at poker, because I
Mhm.
just, when people are playing with real money, they play differently. And so I think, some people think that that might be bad, but I think it's going to add a lot of emotion and tension and stuff to some of these games. So, yeah, you add that aspect to it, where it's really fun in that way. Plus, you had a really good game loop and experience, and I don't see why people wouldn't choose to do that over a game of the same quality that doesn't offer that experience.
Mhm. No, I think that's right. I think there will definitely be a lot of people that are willing to jump in. I mean, frankly, people are spending lots of money now and not getting anything from it, as long as the game itself is compelling, or there's a good community aspect to it. Depending on the genre that they're interested in. I do think that there's going to be some challenges in the space still, because as you mentioned, gamers are willing to go to great lengths. They'll figure out how to set up wallets and so on. Um, there are a number of topics around security issues and around the onboarding process for Web3 games today. And while I'll admit that from the time that I was a little kid, 5 years old, when we'd run out to the store and buy, an actual physical game. So for many of you that are watching the channel, you probably never had the experience of purchasing something physically that you needed to play a video game. But you'd get to the store and you'd spend hours waiting in line for something that was a new release or whatever, and then you rush home. Those feelings of just enjoyment and anticipation are really exciting. If it takes you, though, a day to set up a wallet, 3 days for your bank to fund it because they're holding your fiat currency, and
Hmm.
you can't get Ethereum or Solana set up on your account, that's a pretty big hurdle. So what are some of the things that you think we need to see in the space? And then also specifically with Arcade to Earn, what are some steps that you all are taking to help gamers get onboarded to make that process easier?
Absolutely. So, that is a big challenge. Again, people don't mind paying the money, but they want to make it, as seamless as possible. That's why, Xbox and PlayStation, you can just like create it, you log your credit card into the system and,
Mhm.
Google Pay and all that kind of stuff. You got to make it seamless. So some of the games that we are talking to are building things like into that. And then big exchanges have their own payment systems, like FTX has FTX Pay. Crypto.com, I think, is building a payment system as well. And so basically, like on the front end, like you'll use your credit card, and on the back end, it'll take, that credit card, buy the token, put the token in your
Mm.
wallet. So I think the whole, the linking of, using a credit card in, kind of a traditional payment system to get, those initial amounts of, tokens or fees paid, I think is one really big way that it's going to happen. And then we just see, many different projects, coming out with different technology like that. So some games are building their own wallets. Different exchanges are building, things like that. And so, yeah, I agree that it's got to be easy for someone to come in, go to the website, download the game, kind of link things up pretty quickly. But I think it has come a long way, and it'll just get even better as time goes. I mean, like you said, we're really early to this party, and that goes in terms of the infrastructure support too. I mean, what's this going to look like when Visa and MasterCard like create a card to crypto conversion system, even if it's just to one stable coin or something like that. I mean, once the really big money comes into the space, the technology's out there. So yeah, it'll link up. And then on our platform, what's we try and take the challenge of managing, 5 different wallets and 10 different game coins and stuff out of the equation, because what Arcade does is allows you to get, financial exposure to many different, play to earn games through our mission pools. And it's really setting up, one Phantom wallet and putting, some money into your Phantom wallet and then buying the Arcade token. And with the Phantom wallet, you can link up to FTX Pay and things like that. So yeah, we're taking kind of Main Street integration into thought when we're building out a lot of things as well.
Hmm. No, I think that's awesome. And as I looked at what you guys are doing, that's one of my biggest pain points. I know I do a lot of research, obviously, on different Web3 games that are launching. I don't want to have 100 different tokens sitting in my wallet. There's gas transactions to worry about. There's security, because every time you do that, you're clicking on another link, and you got to make sure you're not getting scammed. And so I think if you can abstract a lot of that away, that really helps with the user experience. That said, I've got about 320 games that I've been tracking, and I've got a video coming out in the next couple weeks, looking at the state of the Web3 gaming industry. Surely you all are looking at even probably more than that. As you consider the games that you're focused on, as a community, what are a few that you in particular are interested in, or the Arcade team maybe is really bullish on producing a good product, having a sustainable economy as well?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things we look at, in terms of games. So, there's, first, a game could be a really good game and just not fit our business model, but we still support those games and we want the community to come to those games because it eventually might be something that works on our platform. Because arcade, what we do is we own or we utilize, premium infrastructure assets. So, let's take a game like Illuvium, which we are, really, really bullish on because of how they're set up. In Illuvium, you can be a player and you can go around and you can collect alluvials and you can battle, and you're what I would consider like the player. But then you also have the people that own the land, which produces the fuel that players use. And those I would kind of more say are like your infrastructure players. You're not, when you're a landowner, you're not competing against the player. It's two kind of separate sides to the equation. And so, what we really look at for what arcade would invest in are those games that provide some sort of infrastructure or premium asset that doesn't necessarily compete with, the player, I would say, but is necessary for the game. So, games that provide that different kind of structure. So we like Illuvium. Heroes of Mavia is like a Clash of Clans style game that similarly, you'll have, land and base owners, but then you'll have like the players that actually kind of play on those bases and land. We like the Fluff ASM, ecosystem. They're building out quite a few games that will be kind of the same way. They have a car racing game called Atom Car Club, a boxing game, and then they'll have like a soccer game. And so in all of those games, again, there are players and then there's infrastructure like stadiums and racetracks and boxing rings. So, what arcade is really interested in is finding those games that has a real economy set up to it. And in any real economy, you have consumers and you have kind of like your business owners, providers. I use kind of the analogy of like a restaurant. Like if every single person in the world owned their own restaurant, like who would go to each other's restaurants?
Yeah.
Like nobody. Like everybody can't be the restaurant owner. You've got to have some people that just go to the restaurant, eat the food, pay the money, and those people then support the business of the restaurant owner. So we, as far as so what we really like to invest in are those infrastructure assets. So games that kind of have that duplicity. But we also love games that are just, we think are going to be, super fun to play. So like Meta Ops is a first person shooter game on the Solana network that, by far and away probably has the best gameplay and footage out right now for that type of a game. We like, I'm just trying to think of some other games that are really high up on the list. So then there's games like Civitas that's coming out that is kind of like a grand strategy builder type game. And then the list just goes on and on. So yeah, we like a lot of these games that are we kind of call them GameFi 2.0 because a lot of them really aren't out yet because they're spending so much time in development and creating the gameplay. And then, the play to earn or the economic aspect is, I wouldn't say it's second as far as the team's priority, but they're really focusing on, the game quality and the experience because if, like we said, if you build that, then the rest will come.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a great point. When we look at games, I think you and I are looking at some very similar ones. I'm very interested in kind of mental models and frameworks for how we think about games, and I have this division in my head. And I think actually looking at Noor and Brooks Brown and his team really helped that crystallize for me. And on one hand, you've got the actual gameplay itself, and that's what in Web2 and traditional gaming, that's all that exists, right? You're generally paying to be able to experience that gameplay loop, but there's no connectivity between the economic activity and the actual game itself. And then the second piece is this metagame side, and so that's the economics of the game. And in Web3, the difference is that metagame within the game is connected to the real world economy also. And so I think that opens up just an unlimited number of ways that you can integrate it. Some projects are integrating it just directly. You pay to buy an asset and you own it and you can use it. In some cases, they're splitting them out completely. So I think there's a lot of potential for, ways that gaming studios can build this in. You shared a few different genres that you guys are looking at Arcade to Earn. Are there some specific genres that you think may lend themselves better to Web3 just based on the structures of the the types of games that you see there?
Yeah. So again, I think it goes back to what is the what's kind of the end all goal of the game. So Web3 I think is going to work really great for most types of games, because even if it's a game where there's not a huge investment component, still the skins, the achievements, being able to play on certain levels, different things like that, like first-person shooter games, will work really good for it. Most of the gameplay is not going to be on the blockchain, but the different asset ownership and transferring of those assets will. And then you have, kind of your grand strategy, your builder, those types of games, I think are going to be really, cool for it too, because, you will have a lot more of the activity actually on the blockchain. So like producing fuels and resources and selling and building and crafting, kind of all those things will be on it. So I think really every type of game, I mean, you could even have a football sports game could be on it, where really the only on-chain activity might be like the roster on your team, and if you do trades with other people, and maybe like leagues and tournaments that you win. But you could have 95% of the gameplay be off-chain, because that's where you could really just have the really fun gameplay. So I believe that really every type of game can invoke some sort of Web3 technology into it to add that component to it, and then some just depending on the game structure and how many different assets and resources change hands and stuff on a daily basis, just kind of determines what level of connectivity the game has to the on-chain activity.
That's interesting. Yeah, and especially you mentioned sports. So as I said, I've got a number of different projects I'm looking at right now. I've got 28 sports games that have been
Mm.
funded in the Web3 space just in the past 2 years alone. And I was really surprised as I was looking through. There are all sorts of different types of sports, of course. But that wasn't one that immediately jumped out to me. But it's actually one of the highest volume categories that we see. And so I think you're right. There's really unlimited ways that development studios can figure out how to integrate Web3 technology and ownership. Um, and what are some of the challenges that you see that may be slowing down the actual development and the launching of a lot of these Web3 gaming projects?
Yeah, I think funding, and size of, the teams and things, when you compare, some of these Web3, game studios to, an Activision or an Epic or a Riot. I mean, they're tiny. I mean, they're in their infancy. I mean, these traditional and legacy game studios, EA Sports, I mean, these companies have been around for decades, so they have a process, they have a pipeline, they have the infrastructure, they have all the ways, the things to do this. And so I think it's just, again, the space is just kind of in its infancy. And, as these teams get bigger and have more funding and generate, more revenue from their first game, then their second game will be able to launch quicker. So I think funding and team size, is a big one. I think the technology as well, having to marry up a traditional, game built on, Unity or Unreal Engine, and then incorporating in, where do we incorporate the Web3 technology into it? How do we link all that together? Like you said, the security aspect of it. So how do we make sure that there's not some loophole in the game where someone like finds out a hack and goes and like steals all the, the
Yeah.
tokens from the loot box or something like that? So yeah, I mean, I think yes, security and the actual development side, and then those things are just hampered a little bit by the size of the teams and stuff. So as they get better and they grow, just like any exponential curve, it'll slowly start to ramp up where the time that it takes to bring things to market will be shorter. But yeah, I mean, definitely right now it's gonna take a little bit of time.
Hmm. I think that's right. And as I was looking at the typical development times for different genres of games, I do expect that it's a bullish sign when I go back and chart where I think games are going to be launching. There's a lot in 2023, and there's even more when you look out over the next couple years beyond that. So I think we're going to see a lot of possibilities. As we know, the space is very young, and so a lot of these companies aren't going to make it. Some of these smaller studios, they've got to make sure they have a long enough runway to be able to support the development activities. Who are some of the main teams that you all are partnering with, whether it's actual gaming development studios or maybe other infrastructure providers in different ways that are working to make sure that we give all of these companies, whether they're large or small, a good shot to be able to succeed for the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, so I think our venture capital partners and backers are a really good partner of ours. The reason a lot of our investors invested in us was because they saw Arcade as this infrastructure play to kind of help the whole entire space. And so I think the backing of big venture capital firms that are also adding value add to their game projects, I think it's a really key component to it, because if the game needs to possibly raise more money to kind of get through the next hurdle, that's going to be really kind of who they turn to. So I think venture capital is really big in this space, just because there aren't a lot of people that are experts or have the capital to help these smaller game studios. So that's really important. There's partners like company Machinations that helps games test out their game economy. So they use a Monte Carlo style simulation tool where a game like fully plugs in and builds in their whole game economy loop and helps them stress test that to say, hey, if there's a little tweak here that you made with a payout on this side, and if you did a little tweak here on, how much you charge per tournament entry, then you create, 3 extra years of stability on your token price compared to if you didn't. So, infrastructure people like that. Game studios themselves, I think there's quite a few out there that are, developing, multi-purpose, not multi-purpose, but, they have the intent to build multiple games. And I think that's what's really important, is that, they understand that, probably our first game isn't going to be our best because it's our first, kind of foray into it. But again, that learning curve of being able to, take what they learned in the first game and utilize it to the second game. I think also, you have companies like Blockchain Space, that's like a news aggregator for GameFi, getting, notoriety and eyes on this space. Even, we're not partnered with them, but some of the games that we are partnered with them, like when a GameStop comes into it, it's that kind of traditional support that's going to bring eyes to it, that, when a game, looks to maybe sell its early NFTs or start, launching their game, it'll bring a lot of eyes to, the game itself, to get players. Because, that's what a lot of these games need. I think it's interesting when a game does like a 10,000, unit NFT sale. And the question is always, well, you're not just going to have 10,000 players, right? I mean,
Right.
You want hundreds of thousands, you want millions, to really add the scalability. So yeah, just working with a lot of different players in the space to, make sure that, we're all kind of building. But again, like we've said a lot of times, we're so early in this, we're trying to figure out the best processes and systems and networking together, like layer 2 solutions like Immutable X, helping make, games have really low transaction fees and prices. So just a lot of players like that in the space that we're working with.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential. As you look at developers and builders in the space, one of the refrains that I've heard that is I think right on is when we hear individuals that are not really on board with Web3, what they're raising as objections or as concerns or problems in the space, for the development teams and the founders, when they hear those, all they're hearing are opportunities. And of the organizations that you just mentioned, I think a lot of them have really seen these pain points and these challenges that people are saying Web3 is not going to work, and it's because of X, Y, Z. you just gave us a list of ways that we can provide value into the space. And when you can provide value into, a technology that's this early, you've got the potential for certainly big, earnings as a company, but also impacting the lives of, potentially billions of gamers, not just millions. I mean, gaming itself has about 3 billion players worldwide.
Yeah.
And so, with that, there's a huge potential value add. So, Arcade is doing some really interesting things. You guys have this mission pool concept that I absolutely love. It's, as I try and explain to people, I view it as kind of the gamification of investing in games to some degree. So,
Hmm.
tell us a little bit about what are some of the key next steps for Arcade to earn.
Yeah, so we are nearly done with our product development. We are looking to launch what we are, this is a little bit of alpha, but we're actually calling it Project Alpha, but it's going to be our, our first real world version that we're going to allow, some investors and industry people to, test out the actual product. We'll have, NFTs in these different games, earning rewards, being operated by, highly skilled players and guilds. Those rewards will then, be sent to the mission pool. And so if you, take your arcade token and you, deposit it into that specific mission pool, you share in that rewards activity. And so we're looking to have, our Project Alpha, released, beginning of September. And so then, we'll let the community and the market then kind of decide when we're going to launch, full after that, and do our, token generation event and public token sale. And so, yeah, right now it's just, finding all the right games that we want to make sure that, we either own assets in, or partnering with people that do own assets in those games. Because there's a lot of people that buy, the investment side of it. There's a lot of people that, buy a lot of assets in these games because they see the potential and they say, okay, if this game is going to have, 3 million players 5 years from now, then this asset that I own is going to be worth a lot of money and generate, a lot of revenue, simply because, like, if I collect 10 cents every time someone, interacts with this or something, I'm going to make a lot of money. But they don't have the time and the effort and the energy to, to utilize that. So, partnering with different people right now to kind of figure out ways to help them utilize their assets on our platform. And then together between all that, hoping then to release the full public version of everything, a couple months or shortly thereafter the Project Alpha launch.
That's awesome. And I think in the next 6 months to a year, this whole space is going to change dramatically. You talk about the challenge of being able to play or track, even all the projects. I can barely keep up with my Discord servers to see what's going on with my top 3, 4, 5 games right now. In addition to doing research or content creation, I don't have time to play any games. And so, I think that's something that I'm really interested in seeing how that evolves, and anything that Arcade or other, companies can do to really make that process easier is better. Because right now, the whole process of finding out information and spending time in, a million Discord servers and jumping to, 30-page white papers is really inefficient. And so I certainly think we need to see some improvements within the space. But it's exciting that you all are stepping in to fill some of those gaps. If I was a gamer, or maybe I'm a leader in a DAO or a guild, or maybe I'm just a whale. I've got a few $1 million, and I want to figure out how can I buy property or characters or items in some of these upcoming projects that I know I'm not going to be able to play at all. Kieran, for instance, mentioned he bought, like 130 pieces of land during the Alluvium land sale. And he's like, he's got no chance to play at all. What advice would you have for, all these individuals that, they may want to get involved. They're not sure how to start, how to connect with Arcade or with other players in the space?
Yeah, I mean, just send me an email, kevin@arcade-to-earn.io. But I mean, really partnering
we'll
with.
take wallet addresses, and you can send them on over. We'll manage them for you, right?
Exactly. I mean, that really is, a big part of what I do is in working in business development for Arcade is networking with these different people, because it really is going to be a challenge. Because, I mean, you said, Kieran, 130 pieces of land in Alluvium, like, what if he also has 20 different parcels in 10 other games? Because if you're an investor, you like to diversify because you don't know what, might be the home run, what might be the triple. So yeah, really it is partnering with someone that you can trust. I mean, with Arcade, we're all North American based. We're all fully doxed. When we do agreements with people, it's not only just doing stuff securely on the blockchain, but using official legal agreements and such as that. So really it is just reaching out to Arcade, and starting that discussion so that we can look at the different assets that you have, how we could help you monetize them. And then using the Arcade platform, when it's out, to also, research and see, what might be good to put some funds into. I mean, we're not a financial advisor. We're not telling people like, hey, go invest in this to do this. But, what we are hoping to do is, show enough of the game and the gameplay and how things can be used that, a person can then kind of make that decision and say, well, okay, Arcade has done this. I've seen the rewards generated. I've seen, and kind of followed the game a little bit. I'm confident that, this game, is probably here to stay, and that, I can deploy some real funds into it. So yeah, I mean, you can reach out to us directly, and then, follow us on our different, socials. And we do a lot of different, Twitch streams and AMAs called Learn to Earn, where we bring games on and we do interviews with them and to understand and kind of shed some light, directly with the founding team, with the community. So yeah, we're happy to help, everybody that, wants to come to us and learn more.
No, I think that sounds great. And, my hope is that Web3 gaming is also just a good introduction for many people to the world of blockchain and crypto, in a way that allows them to see the value of the technology, but in a way that's easy to understand and wrap their heads around. So for sure. So, any final thoughts that you've got either on, the Web3 gaming space in general or Arcade to Earn that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that, with anything, it's all about the right, players, coming together in a space. We are early, but, I think the difference with Web3 gaming and crypto in general is that, we don't know how long early is going to last. I mean, it could go from early to mainstream, as soon as, in the blink of an eye. So, I just encourage, we like working with other good projects, because we think that, the more kind of people that have the right mindset, are looking out for, kind of the good of everybody, not trying to do, flash in the pan, type, things that aren't really genuine. We really just like working with, all kinds of different projects, whether, that's new layer 2 solutions, new games, game studios, infrastructure projects, kind of like us. We really just want, the whole community and the whole space to, really focus on doing what's right for the gamer and the user, and even if that means, the projects make, a couple less bucks, at the forefront, we all know that, by taking care of your customer and your community, that it works, out, better in the long run for everybody. So, if you've got, a cool project that you think you could, network with Arcade, we'd be happy to, chat with you and support, all of our different, ecosystem partners.
And I really love that you guys are so focused on the long-term sustainable aspect. I think companies that didn't have that as a core value or core premise from the start have gotten themselves in trouble, and we've seen some examples of that over the past year or two. That said, you guys actually have a really interesting component in your tokenomics and your roadmap, and that's this 50-year time horizon. I kind of mentioned it at the start. And as we're thinking about, how can we ensure that the space is focused on sustainability? I think that's just kind of a super out there concept. But you want to tell our audience a little bit about what is this 50-year time horizon that you guys are looking at with Arcade?
Yeah, so we call it the 50-year WAGMI bonus pool, and what it does is it kind of accomplishes two things. So, one, it does put this bonus pool out there that is 50 years in the future, that is going to slowly accumulate tokens from different transactions and activities on our platform. And so, if if you meet the criteria that we'll set out when we launch it, you'll get a share of this 50-year bonus pool. And so it's a way to help people think about the long-term vision. But another main component is it takes those tokens out of circulation for the next 50 years. So because we are a US-based company and we have to abide by what we think and understand are the current US securities regulations at this point, we have to take into account certain things. So one of those being, like, you can't burn tokens, you can't permanently affect the supply of your token count. And so one way that we can do that, though, is we can send them to a smart contract that basically those tokens are locked up for 50 years. So as different activities happen on our platform, tokens are slowly sent to that bonus pool, which effectively removes them from the active circulation that can be deposited into mission pools. So it's a big deflationary measure. But yeah, there will be some people that, I have a 2-year-old and a 1-month-old, and you better believe it that they will have some wallets in their name that make sure that they meet these requirements because, I think it could be, there's a lot of companies and projects. I think Apple has now even been around for 50 years, I think. Mm-hmm. And people don't think of Apple as like as a really old company, but like if Apple had a 50-year bonus pool, like I think some people would start getting those payouts. So, we really view ourselves as, a forefront and leader in, the technology and the platform space for GameFi. And so, for people that can stay along with us, that'll be great. And it also helps, with, some of the deflationary measures that we're building in.
Mm. That's awesome. Yeah, 50 years out, if I'm still around, then I'm definitely going to make it. That's a good deal for me. But as you said, whether it's me or my kids or my grandkids, I think that's a super cool concept. So awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. Really enjoyed our conversation. There's so much to be bullish on in the Web3 gaming space. I know, and for our audience, we're all currently going through the middle of a bear market. But if you have conviction for the long term, I don't think there's any better spaces to be in right now than Web3 gaming. And so glad you all are joining us. Thankful for what Arcade is doing to try and bring this space to the broader consciousness of gamers and investors across the world. So appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on today, and our team just really loves this space, and we love what you're doing as well to help inform and educate, because the longer we keep people here in the space, the more likely it is to succeed. If the first thing they do in Web3 gaming, they buy a $200 NFT and the game shuts down 2 months later, I don't know if they're really, gonna give it a crack again, if they see that component to anything. But, from Arcade's side, if they come in and they can, buy our token and get these rewards from these mission pools and have fun kind of picking and choosing, which game activities they earn from, and then on, the gameplay side, if they're, if the games they are getting into are fun and the community is really good, then they're going to stick around, and that's really what we need and what we're aiming for. So yeah, just really appreciate again what you're doing and having us on here as well.
That was awesome. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this content and you want to ensure that I can bring some more Giga Brains on to talk about Web3 gaming, give me a like or a subscription to the channel, and also in the comments, let me know who you'd like to see me interview in the future. Let's continue building Web3 gaming so that all of us can ensure that it's still around when our grandkids are playing.